Good call, Mick. Thank you. Okay, so can everyone see my screen again?
Yes.
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 All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into it. So right now, we have the invoice reconciliation screen. This is where you can see the invoices that have already been created. Now again, since I'm in my test system, I'm working off of one invoice here that, that has some history that I can work with, and it says 1821. Again, in the live system, you'll have more realistic data and more things that you can do. But you can see I've already created 5 revisions to this one invoice. And the way the system works today is that you have, again, things that haven't changed. You still have your production items. It still shows the production totals during the week. I still have my total. I still have my revenue total. And then if I create a revision, which I'll get to, I'm able to see the last revision and then what my revised revenue is. And then I can also see what the customer rate is for this. Now, the way that you create a revision, or you specify for the revision which production items does this revision apply to. So if it's just money collected, you can just click the money collected. If it's money collected and saves, you can click that. Or if it's everything, you can always hit this box on the top here, and that will bring you to, as soon as you create, you check this box here, it will give you an option that you can create a revision. When I click to create a revision, what it will show me is it will show me any of the employees that have that are associated with this job during the week that the revenue was, that the original invoice was created. But you can see the revision date here. It's going to be based on today's date, 6/4/2018. And what it shows me is it shows me what the previous production total was for the money collected and the save. So normally what this would show would be the production, the original production total. But in a case like this where you have multiple revisions, it shows whatever the last total is for Eric for this production item. Now, if there are 4 different people on this job, you would see 4 different names here, and you could individually change each person in terms of what their revised total is.
It doesn't show the original.
What about the original?
So the original is, if you need to see the original, what you'll see is that's going to be from the first revision. You'll see that that was 300. So because I'm on the 5th revision,
right,
you'll be able to see that 300 was
it
the
would
original.
say the previous. Right, the previous is the prior. So if you're on revision 1, the previous would be the original.
Correct. That's exactly right. So normally, in the normal scenario, this would be the original. This 500 here would be the original. Right. In the case where we have multiple revisions, it's going to show you whatever the whatever the most recent is.
The billing, okay.
Go ahead.
The billing rate, if we change the billing rate, do we have to go through and change the billing rate for every affected employee? I thought that would just be like a default.
Yeah, no, good question. So the way the billing rate works is you can see that's per item. So what happens is if I just want to change the billing rate for the money collected, I can just change the billing rate for money collected, say create revision, and it's going to, I have my billing rate here. I could change that to be 25% if I wanted to.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And now I just created a new revision, and that's the only thing that I changed was the billing rate for that one item. If I change the revised rate for here, this is the pay rate that they get paid, then I would need to do that for each specific person and say what their pay rate is for that item if I'm changing.
We can't tie that to their specific codes, like instead of punching in the rate, like on the production data for each employee, like we have a A, B, and C rate code that's saved for them. We don't have the ability to punch in that drop-down pay code.
Yeah, so right now what it's doing is it's putting lets you change the percentage. Now and Ryan, can you take notes here?
So are you asking, so Scott, are you asking that the rate plans are the only rates that show?
Well, if we're gonna, I don't want to jump ahead. I guess we can talk through this. So if we have a payroll that we're going to revise, we had a couple of things that came up when we watched the YouTube demo that were a concern to us. I don't know if we should wait to the end or if we should throw it out there now.
Sooner the better. Yeah.
So what we saw is if we were going to take away from an individual employee, like if they get, for example, they get charged back for bounce checks, for example. So if Eric Abernathy, let's say his original was $600 on the original invoice, and then we wanted to take away a bounce check for $100, we would go from 600 to 500 or 500 to 400, and he got paid originally, let's say he got paid at 10% on that. Well, that's the billing rate. Where's the payout rate to the tech?
I'm sorry, this is the payout rate. So it says billing rate next to here.
Oh.
And I know it lines up a little weird, but the payout rate right here is where it's figuring out that he loses $10.
Okay, so if he originally got paid at 10%, we need to take 10% of what he got paid at on that originally. And then when Comcast, when we tier up, they pay us more. So I don't know if we would revise the invoice once and take away all the chargebacks. And then if our billing rate went up, then we'd revise it again and put the new billing rates in.
Because it's after the pay rate changes.
Because the pay rate changes too. So if
you would you have a chargeback end. Okay, good. Go ahead.
So Eric Abernathy got paid 10% on $500 collected, but he was penalized because he had a check that bounced, so he lost $100 that he collected at 10%. We'd have to take away that payment at that original billing rate that he got paid for, and then if we got on the revised invoice that Comcast pays us more, we get paid more, a higher percentage for the money collected, we would have to pay him more. We can't charge him back more than he originally got paid for. That might be a little confusing, but we need to do the chargeback on the original billing rate. When the billing rate changes and the billing rate goes up, we have to pay him at a higher percentage after we do the deduction for the bounce check. So we can't pay him, can't do the chargeback after. So
well, a chargeback doesn't go on.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So do you adjust an invoice for a chargeback?
Mm-hmm.
It's
not really a chargeback. They're not paying us. Like we pay them on advanced commissions. Like when they submitted on the original invoice, let's say it's $600 or $500 for Eric. He had $500 that he collected. We pay him 10% on that $500. Then 3 weeks later, Comcast sends us the invoice after they sweep all the checks to make sure they cleared. And the ones that don't clear, I mean, it's a payment reversal. We don't get paid on that, but we need to recoup that money from the employee. So if Eric Abernathy had a bounce check and it totaled $100, we need to back charge him $100 for that bounce check. So his money collected becomes 10% of $400 collected. But in turn, when Comcast pays us 3 weeks later for that week, they may pay us at 25% instead of 20%. So his his billing rate would go up. His pay rate would go up and our billing rate would go up.
So yeah, so the question I have, when you say his pay rate would go up, how is his pay rate going up?
So we're paid on a performance tier by Comcast. Our baseline, for example, our baseline pay rate is 15%. We pay all of our tax on the original invoice at 15%. If we tier up or bonus up where Comcast pays us more, they send us an invoice with that adjusted amount for the bonus rate. So it might go from 15 to 17% or 20% or 25% or even 30%. So we need to take away the chargebacks from the employees that we originally paid them on, but then if our billing rate went up, which it typically does 95% of the time, we get paid at a higher rate on the money collected and on the saved portion. So we were talking through this. I guess hypothetically, the way you have it set up now is we could revise the invoice and do the chargebacks, like take away the bounce checks, like take off $100 off of Eric Abernathy, revise that invoice, and then if Comcast, if we tiered up, then we would do the second revision and we could adjust the billing rate and the payout rate. I don't know if we can do that.
I'm not sure that would work the way it is here, and the reason I say that is the revised rate that you see here is off of the difference in the production total. So if the production total doesn't change, it doesn't change their commissions. It's only applying this against whatever the difference is. So in this case, because it was an adjustment of $100, if I do, let's say I increase it to 12, and let's say I make the 600 instead of 400, or leave it at 500. If I leave it at 500, I don't change the production total, I just increase the rate. It doesn't have an effect on the commissions. It does have an effect on the management bonus. That's what I want to make sure I'm understanding how this, how the pay is provided. So if I increase the billing rate, this is what's driving what the management bonus is. So if the person should receive a greater management bonus because they're, because the amount invoiced is higher, that would be calculated because of this bill. That's because of the billing rate, which is the amount that the customer is getting billed. And in either case, it doesn't increase it when I do this right now the way it is in our test site. So what I think you're saying is, let's imagine that there was no chargeback, right? So if there was no chargeback and Eric received 10% revised rate, what you would want to do is you would want to apply that higher percentage against the entire $500. So 12% against the original $500, not just what the revision was. So you are giving them, is that true that you're giving them a higher percentage against the entire production for that period?
Correct.
And then what would happen if?
So the billing rate goes up and their field pay rate goes up. Their piece rate goes up.
For the entire amount.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, and again, it makes the screen more complicated, but one of the things we explored that is not on the test site is providing an option whether it applies to the entire production total or just the adjusted amount, which then would let you do what you're talking about with two different revisions.
Yeah, because so currently what we do is when we revise an invoice manually, we take the original invoice and we remove the payments. We import the Excel file into our payroll and we remove the payments, and then we change the billing rate. And we pay it at the higher rate. So right now we wouldn't want, if if the tech originally got paid at 10% and we removed a $100 payment, we'd be removing $10. If we change the payout rate to the tech, if it gets bumped up to 12% and he got charged back on a $100 check that he collected, we'd be charging him back $12. We don't want to do that. Are you with me?
Yeah, I think so. Just trying to think through how to best handle it. Of course, what happens if the chargeback occurs after you gave them the higher billing rate? I mean, theoretically, you could enter a revision after you increase the billing rate.
Well, yeah, we don't want to take it off the higher rate, but or we would have to do the deductions. You would have to know what the deduction would be. You'd still have to manually calculate all that,
Right.
which is what we don't want to do.
That original amount.
You don't have to speak up.
No, I'm just like talking through with you. Yeah, there would. It's gonna have to be manually calculated and entered in. Or the two-step process.
Do you want to? I mean, what are our options here? If I want to deduct $100 collected off of Eric Abernathy at 10%. So
that works today. I mean, that works
okay,
today. I can do that. Yep.
Okay, and if that was the original payout rate for that tech, he's gonna lose essentially $10 in commission earned because
Yep.
the check bounced.
Yep.
At the same time,
Correct.
for that, when Comcast pays us that invoice series, they send us a check for like $90,000. But our pay rate went up. Our pay rate went from 25% to say 30%. So we need to adjust that too to reflect that in the invoice total. The
So can't you
override.
change the bill rate at the top to 30%?
Where do you change the save amount though?
And then I need to change the payout rate for the tech from, let's say, 10 to 12 or 13, whatever. For
This
Well-
right here is referring to this. Where can we change this amount?
Which amount?
Oh, but it's
Save.
we didn't down here. Saves.
So we changed the bill rate or the invoice rate. We also changed the commission rate, which
Yeah, we
hence,
need to change it.
gave him a chargeback or whatever of 100 and increased potentially the invoice.
We'll change the billing rate to 12%. I mean, not the billing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I made
Yeah,
us charge back 12. They made us charge back $12 instead of 10.
Right.
We
But
originally
we originally paid him. He originally got 10%.
Okay. So, John, what's happening is it's deducting the current rate against the change rate against what he got. That can't happen because you're taking more money than he already got paid.
Woo!
Yeah, I get it. So right now, I think the piece that's not in the automated calculations is through this screen today. The way it's doing it is I'm figuring out this affects differences in production. That's what I'm able to do here, and this affects the change in the billing rate. What doesn't happen today anywhere is if I change the billing rate, I'm not able to change the pay rate for the total production. So I'm not able to give someone a different tier. Like that's something that, and maybe if I jump to the job here, let me jump back a second just to make sure I understand what, how this works.
I'm gonna scan these and send this over because maybe it'll help have like a visual of what it looks like now.
That would be helpful.
No? Okay.
Yeah, we can share your screen.
Yeah, I think that might help because right now there's something here that, again, you mentioned that you have different tiers. There's nothing automatic that's switching people to different tiers anywhere in the system, so I think that might be a piece that's just generally missing.
Oh, well, we'd have to log into, click on a job, click on that MediaCom
Yeah.
Dagsboro, and then we need to see an employee.
All right, let me get there. 5-7. I think this is the one.
I was gonna include this.
Yeah, so like low, medium, high, those are, Sally goes like, the billing rate's 22%, the payout goes 7, 8, 9%.
Yep. And then
That's
what
what I call
happens
it.
but then what happens is the employees, like if I remember correctly, and I click on an employee here. So if I click on Eric, let me actually jump to his record. And I click on Eric. He has somewhere I define which job, which rate he has, correct?
Well, I don't, you go to production data, click on that.
Yep, that's the idea. So then in here, this is where it shows that he's on low. So what happens is right now, it's not directly linked to anything. So are you week by week changing the rate plan based on the revenue that's gained to figure out what tier people are getting paid?
Well, the rate plans that are paid to the techs are essentially low, medium, high, or A, B, or C. But the payout, if we tier up or if we get bonus money, we increase the payout. So I guess if that's tied, that should be tied over there, right? If Eric Abernathy's on low, it's going to tie to the revision because it's what he got paid at.
Yeah, it's just stating whatever the rate he got paid is right here. So it saves that rate, and that's what it remembers unless you change it. So I think the thing that's missing is that whole concept of you get a bonus and you give you're giving that out as a percentage.
It's not, yeah, it's a percentage. So their pay rate changes. It typically goes up. I mean, I guess it could go down in other markets, but it always goes up for us.
So what I think we're missing, I mean, just to come back to it, what I think we're missing is the concept of providing, let me jump all the way back to the screen that we were on. So if I'm on the invoice, right now, what this screen is doing is it's letting me do that chargeback. It's letting me change the production totals, and it's also letting me change the rate that the customer got billed for things like margin reporting. What it doesn't let me do is say, okay, give me I want to increase the billing rate, and I want to give everyone a special bonus of 2% across whatever their production is. So it's giving them a bonus. And right now, you can manually add that in to each person, but it's not calculating it based on their production. So I think it's a new type of revision that we don't have in here, is to give that bonus. And then it wouldn't change this rate here. You would just say that I want to give, right now it's at 10%. I want to increase that by 2%, and it would take 2% against the $500 is what it should do, right? Because they already got the 10%. And is that how the math would work?
Well, that would work. I mean, I guess we could do the pay rate instead of paying them 13% on the original 500, we would want to pay the increase on the revised totals.
'Cause it happens at a different time anyway. Yeah. Right?
We could,
When does that come?
if we change the billing rate, if we go from 25 to 30, and if they originally got paid 10% on
500.
500, and let's say we take away the bounce checks and Eric goes to 400, we would want to pay the increase instead of, we could pay the additional
2%.
2% on 400.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we used to do it, remember? That's how we did it like originally. That's when I would do it. Yeah, we could, instead of changing the rate from like 10 to 12 or 15%, we could just change it. So if it went up by 2%, well, then we'd have to change the billing rate by the same percentage that it went up. So we wouldn't change it from 25 to, we would maybe change that to 5%. That'd be like a 5% increase.
Yeah.
And then the pay rate to the tech would be 2% or 2.25%. I guess that would work. But we'd have to tie that payout rate to the tech to the revised production total after we do the chargebacks. Yeah?
Yeah, which I think would be fine to do it that way. Essentially, right now it's calculating the chargeback. We'd have to then layer this on top of it. That would be, specific bonus that they would get. That would be the, percentage that would go against whatever. Again, if you made this 400 because you gave them the chargeback, that would stay at 10%. So you wouldn't change this. They'd lose $10. You give them 2%. It would be 2% against the $400, which would be $8, right? So that when you add all that up, they would end up losing $2, but you'd have all the math behind it.
Correct. And then they would have to tie into any back-end overrides with the manager commissions and whatnot.
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess you would have to add, like you said, you'd have to add in another column there, another row.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, another element to say, probably. So I guess every time, is it every time you change a billing rate that you would give a bonus, or only sometimes?
Like 100%.
Yeah, for us it's always,
Yeah.
Well, unless we don't tier up.
We've tiered up consistently for the last.
Well, there's hypothetically we could not get a bonus, but we'd still have to do chargebacks.
Got it. Yeah, so you might have that. You might have chargebacks. So yeah, so we have another option in here that let you change the billing rate.
So Scott, I got a question. So Scott and Courtney, so when you're saying bonus, are you saying that when they increase the commission to us, that's considered a bonus?
Well, it's not a bonus. It's actually in our.
It's just more revenue.
It's more revenue, and it's revenue that the employees earn by driving their performance. So Comcast has a tiered payout. It's a tiered payout structure. I would call it.
So the way that it's done is Scott, or the Heartland division, us, we pay out at the lowest rate because we don't know when we generate the payroll, we don't know what tier we're going to hit for Comcast. They provide us that 4 weeks later, 3 to 4 weeks later. So that's why, we have to get it in to get payroll paid, but we don't necessarily know what Comcast is going to pay us because they don't send us their invoice until 3 to 4 weeks later. And then that's where we know the tier that we have met, and they pay out to the tech that goes with that tier. That's why they're technically owed.
And this isn't just us. This is all of Comcast.
Right, but not everybody pays at that lower. They do it differently. They take that overage money and.
But what we're trying to achieve, Kara, is we're trying to pay our guys consistently, weekly.
Yeah, I get it.
We consistently want to take back any deductions from them in case they quit or get terminated. And if they're actually earning more money, it's only fair and equitable to pay them the extra money every payroll. Right now, we're going on about 6 weeks without charging back or paying out the extra money.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
Got it.
And now I understand why you were talking about the rate plans too. So you're putting them on that, they're on a certain rate plan, but then really what you're trying to do is bump them up so that you don't have to do it for each of the different items, right?
Well, the rate plan stays the same, but if our billing rate goes up, we have to adjust the pay rates too.
Okay. Now, do you adjust the pay rates for everyone? So if the billing rate goes up by, if it goes up by 5%, does everyone get the same increase in percentage-wise on their production?
It depends on what pay rate they're on. We have grandfathered employees that get paid a little bit higher than some of our newer employees. So some get paid out at 40%, and some get paid out at 43%, and some get paid out at 44%. So we have 3 different payout rates to our employees. So if it went up by 5%, one tech could get paid 2%, one tech could get 2.3%, another tech could get 2.5%.
Now, in terms of putting that in here, how would you envision putting that, because I could have, again, 10 different employees here. How would you envision putting in the different percentages there?
Well, conceptually, I would like to go to the pay rates and change the billing rate. I would like to have somewhere, either on this screen or somewhere, where I could have the way mine are set up, like you went to this job and it had low, medium, and high. I have A, B, and C. I would like to have that apply across the board to every employee that's affected, because every employee would be affected.
You still have to do the drop down on every single employee. Why couldn't we have, if the billing rate changes, why can't that be tied to, so like the 3%, or I can't read that, the 3 or 5% increase automatically means that anybody at this rate gets a X amount increase, anybody at this rate gets an X amount increase? Is that, that's probably behind the scenes thing where it just automatically populates those rates when you change that.
Yeah, but I need to know what the rules are. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So like if I change that to 5.25, how do I know that Eric was grandfathered in and he got 43, or he got a certain percent, and then someone else was, like, how do I know what those rules are is what I'm trying to figure out now.
Well, wouldn't that, Eric, because we got to manually change it. It doesn't have the original pay rate.
Well, I guess we would we would have to go through and have a drop down, like an A, B, and C, and the percentage, like what we pay out. Like we pay out 40% to a B scale guy, and we pay out 45% to an A scale guy.
Yeah, but you're not talking about paying that percent. You're just talking about paying different.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We'd have to set up we'd have to have a pay somewhere set up there where we could either click on the drop down, or you'd have to type it in. It'd have to be a pay scale tied to that billing rate. So if the billing rate is, if we're going to do the 5% increase, we would have to have a pay rate set up for that. So if it's 5%, it would be, we would have to go through this payout scale. We got 17, 25, and 30%. And if we pay out 15, that would be 2%, 10%, and 15% bill rate. And then we'd have to have an A, B, and C.
You'd have to have it like 3 times though. Or you'd have to have 9 different drop downs based on what the billing rate is. You're going to have 9 different pay rates because you've got 3 tiers for each. You've got 3 pay rates for each tier.
Yeah, and they have the customer save portion too.
I understand. So each thing you need 9 drop down, like 9 line items.
Well, if we scroll down and we would have to, I don't know if we could add in, like we don't need, like we could add this in like down here. We could put in tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 would be. So we would have, I guess, if we could create line items for the pay rates. I don't know if we could tie that to it. So if we went tier 2, 3, and 4 for the percentage of the money collected, and we do the customer rate, and then we do the same thing for the customer save, tier 2, 3, and 4. And then we would put in the pay rate, just like we have there. And I don't know how we could tie that over to the invoice.
Yeah, so right now, what I think we're getting into, is a lot of automation that's complicated. Because right now you can do one customer rate, and then you can build out as many pay rates as you'd like, but the two aren't tied together. It's not that this customer rate ties to that rate. What happens is you specify per employee what this rate is, but in no way is that tied to this rate. So if you change the rate on a revision, it doesn't automatically change. It doesn't know what tier that would be into without a lot of things happening behind the scenes.
Okay.
So let me ask let me just give a whole different concept to see whether it might help. If I let you export something from here, say into Excel, that had the original rate, the original billing rate, just an idea here. And then in Excel, you do the math to figure out that it's 2% different. So instead of having the previous rate, I also have the original billing rate in here. And you can change the billing rate, and I do this in Excel, and I can give you a formula. Then in Excel, imagine that you made the change there. I figured out what the math was for the employees, and then I gave you just a screen to put in what the differences were on the production. Just have, like, instead of having to select on each employee, just give you a place where, again, right now I can give earning codes and I can give bonuses to people, but just give you a way to do that on one screen where instead of trying to build it all out behind the scenes, which again, I don't want to delay, I don't want to create a bigger project than we already have here, if possible. But I'm not.
I think he's saying we could. We would do the deduction off the original invoice, so we do the takeaways.
Yeah.
Would we revise? So if we had a chargeback for Eric, we took away $100, we would revise the invoice, but we would need to change the billing rate.
No, is he talking about uploading from Excel?
I think he was saying you could export.
Yeah, actually, let me just give you a different concept. So the idea is that this is used for the chargebacks. Right now, that's what this screen is. And I think part of the challenges we're having is that we're trying to build in, you're trying to visualize what it might look like to do this other function. So imagine you have two different steps. One, you do the chargeback. So that would be the first step. That's where you could use this screen for, or any time any production totals were different is exactly what is happening now. Then what you have is the ability to change the billing rate and the commission totals, which is a different screen. And what that can show is it can show the employee, the original rate, the original billing that you have for a person, and then you could do like a bulk adjustment just against all the people on that screen that's different than what you have here. So you're not able to revise the production total on that screen. You're just able to change specify that you want to give them an increase or a decrease because you increase the billing. Now it's not, if I increase this by 2%, it would know what the original is, but you still might need to adjust what the rates are for the people that are showing up. It's not going to automatically do that. That's That's the part that we don't have the tie-in between, that because this increased by 3%, it brought it into a different tier, and Eric should now get 12%, or someone else should get 12.25%, and someone else should get 5%. We don't have that link between this percent and that percent. So that's the one piece that I'm saying, either in Excel or on a new screen, you still need to figure that tier out and then plug it into a new screen.
Correct. So you can do a new screen, or would it be a manual Excel?
What I can do is I can mock up what the new screen would look like, and I can say what the Excel would look like, and then we can decide which one makes more sense. I'd rather draw a picture of it than have you decide here on the phone without seeing it.
But what we talked about, I mean, going back to I think when we originally started this call, if we revised the invoice and did the chargebacks and took away $100 off of Eric, and you had a revised invoice and you kept everything, his payout constant, if you did a second revision, we couldn't do the revision. There's no way to do the revision off the first revised total and then change the rate, the billing rate and the payout rate. That's not possible. Or like you said, there's too much going on in the back end. That's not possible.
Yeah, not today. That's why I definitely need something new for that. Because right now, this rate that we're seeing is against whatever the difference is. So it's not against the entire production total. And that's what you're talking about, is that because the billing rate went up, you want to increase this from 10 to 12%, which even if I made this 12%, you can see there's no adjustment because I didn't change the production. So this screen right here, it's primarily for changing the production or for changing the amount that gets billed to the customer. So you can see if I change this, the amount that gets tracked to the customer changes, but nothing changes for Eric, no matter what I do here. The only thing that it affects in this screen, the commission impact, is the difference. So I'm only getting paid commission, this rate, on the difference. So normally, in a normal case, you wouldn't change this. And I can think of a few scenarios where you would change this, but normally you would not. The only time you would be the scenario that I can think of is a scenario that you already did increase them to that 12% and you want to take 12% back instead of 10 because they already got paid at that 12%. So normally you wouldn't change this pay rate right here on the screen as we have it, because that's just applying it against the change in production. So I think there's a piece that's missing is when increasing the billing rate. Right now, that impacts the management bonus, but the piece that you're saying is on top of that is you're also providing a separate bonus or separate commission pay to all of the employees, and that rate is different per employee, potentially, that they're going to be getting.
Yeah, the rate is different, and their production total, money's collected or saves, could go down. I mean, if they have a chargeback. Yep.
Yeah. So this handles the chargeback. It does let you change what that chargeback percentage is if for some reason it's different. If, on the other hand, if it turns out that this number is higher, again, they can still get an increase, but it's only on that difference. So if their production is higher than it was entered for whatever reason, you find that out, they can still, it would still keep that rate from whatever the original billing rate is. This would carry over unless you change it. So normally you would not change this, and it handles to make sure the person's getting paid. It handles to make sure the management bonus is right. The only thing that we don't have in here is when you tier up, as you're calling it, that it doesn't add that bonus in.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. That's the bonus because they got paid more than they were paying off of a certain low amount. They got paid more by Comcast because they're paying off the lowest tier. Because they are at a higher tier, they tier up. They give everyone an extra extra couple percentage. and then and that needs to appear in here. And I think that's the one piece that, yeah, that again, I can mock something up and add that piece in. But it's different.
So another thing, I think we're overcomplicating this. Kara, are you still on?
Yeah.
So if this revision process works where we can take away chargebacks,
Yep.
set up there, and if Comcast pays us 3 weeks later, if we originally bill the invoice and let's say it's $50,000 and 3 weeks later Comcast pays us $60,000, we got an increase in revenue of $10,000. And we were talking about paying out the difference. If I just added, would that work for Katie? Would she be able to reconcile that?
Well, I don't know what they're trying to do.
If we added a line item to that, whenever Comcast pays that invoice, if we just paid out the difference, if we added a line item on the production data, so if we went from 15 to 17%, each tech would get paid an extra percent, and we would bill out 2%. So I think we could capture that and pay it out, and we could show the revenue. I think it would.
But how are you gonna take away from the tax? Like,
Well, you can revise the end. You could take away the chargebacks. You just revise.
What? Didn't get stuff taken away, or somebody did get stuff like more taken away than the other person. And then you're gonna take the difference in revenue and like pay it out based on what? That's why we haven't been paying out, because it's not a fair.
Like if
Well, what do you do now? Because it sounds like it's complicated, but I don't. What do we do now? Huh?
What have we been doing?
Yeah.
We would do the invoice on Excel, the payroll file we've been using for eons. We would send it to Katie and Linda. They would process the payroll. They would pay the guys, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, when we got the invoice back, Courtney would go through, take away the bounce checks, and we would change the pay rate, the billing rate to the customer, and the pay rate to the tech was make sure it balanced, and then we'd upload it to ShareFile. And I don't know how Linda went through, and it was a manual process.
Well,
so Carrie, one thing that, theoretically, the way it is today, if you go through and you eliminate the chargebacks, then what you'll be able to see, if you wanted to increase the percentages here, you have the totals and you have what the billing rates are. So someone could go in and they could just do bonuses for each of the people, manually, as it is, without making any functionality changes to the system, just based on these totals and what the percentages are. But that's a good question. How are you doing it today? Because that's what we're trying to make better, that piece of it.
We run it back and she prints out each one and then pays the difference.
Yeah, I think what Linda was doing, she would print out the original tech pay sheet and print out the revised tech pay sheet and pay the difference, whether it was positive or negative.
Yeah.
I know that's how she did it. So.
Right. Okay.
But if we had if we added a new pay rate and a new billing rate, not like if we went from 15 to 17%, our billing rate went up by 2%.
Right.
And then we would set up a payout to the tech of 1% or 1.25%. And we could figure that we could split the difference. It would be a payout. I think that might work.
I can't see what's going on in your head right now.
I'd have to show you.
Yeah.
All right, I got something percolating in my head, but I gotta think it through. I'm gonna have to look at Miles and look at some of my old invoices from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to, I have some things again in my head. I'm not going to make any immediate changes to this, and we are working on some other things. But yes, the idea is, what you mentioned in your head. It's either 1 or 1.25%. Yeah, that's trying to get it at how you were doing it so that we can, without overcomplicating this, make it so you can just very easily get that in here.
But right now, we could do a chargeback. If a tech had chargebacks, you could set it up, or it would come off, and it would go on that current week, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. So right now that occurs. You can do the chargebacks. You can also increase the billing rate, which affects what you receive from the customer, which affects the current week as well in terms of revenue, which is on the reporting, and it affects management bonuses. It's that one piece, that tiering up that we don't have in here. It sounds like that.
We need to, if the commission impact went up, if we got paid more from Comcast, if it went up from 20 to 25%, that's fine. That would show up, and then we could take away the chargeback. If the tech went from 500 to 400, it would deduct it, right?
Yep.
And now let's say, and then I need to pay out my employees more. If I added a line item to that current week.
That's the only part that's missing.
I know. If I added the 1% or 2% or whatever, and I added that as a line item, and we had that, in the customer save rate, yeah. If we added those line items, then we would just need that difference, whether it was positive or negative, and you would enter it down there. You would enter it in. We'd want to enter it into that week's production. I would think. I think that might work. I don't know.
But don't you want to see it as a decision?
Well, does it matter where it gets paid? If it gets paid goes on his current check, it should go on his current check.
I know, but when we need to look back at something, don't we want to see it in the same log right here that we modified the original invoice?
I don't know about all that. It doesn't matter to me. I don't know if it matters.
Why can't there be a line item right here on this same screen? So you, on one line, you do the deduction at the billing rate, and on the next line, you do.
Well, I think they're aware of that.
So that's why I'm asking you, doing it right here in one spot in the revision section.
I got another call at 2:30, but I can wait a couple minutes.
All right, why don't we circle back? I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Scott, maybe you, Katie, Courtney, get on the phone and see what we really need on our side, and then I'll send it back to John, and then he could see what he needs to do.
I think that makes sense. I understand the piece that you need. It's just figuring out the best way to implement it is where we are now.
Yeah, I don't know how all this stuff ties in on the back end. If it's, I guess it's a database, isn't it?
One like Carrie said,
Yeah.
Katie.
Yeah, and maybe Katie should be on a call whenever she's free. I don't know what day that is.
Yeah, me neither.
I think maybe it's Tuesdays, Mondays.
All right, I'll touch base. John, thank you.
All right.
I know everybody else has other stuff to do, so let's just circle back.
All right. Yeah. So I will. I'll wait to hear back from you on that, Kerry, and then the other thing, I'll just do one more check on the rate plan logic and give you an update on where that is.
All right. Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Good. Thanks everyone for your time today.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.